Okay, it looks like we are at the appointed time and date, February 25th at 6:30 p.m. I am calling to order the Planning Commission meeting. I guess this is my first time doing this, so bear with me. I'm calling to order. Shall we go forward with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, 1 moment.
Okay. Seeing the flag, I will start it out. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice and liberty for all. Okay. Shall we do the roll call, Madam Secretary?
Yes, Commissioner Altman.
Present.
Commissioner Goff.
Present.
Commissioner Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Malari, Vice Chair Malari.
Present.
Chair Navarro.
Present.
When Chair Navarro, I do have some opening remarks at this point. You don't mind?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you for joining us for the February 25th, 2021 City of American Canyon Planning Commission meeting. This meeting is being held entirely virtually in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The format for tonight will be similar to that of an in-person Planning Commission meeting. In addition to the Zoom platform, the meeting is being broadcast on cable TV channel 28, on YouTube, and streamed live on the city's website. You will see members of the Planning Commission on your screen along with members of city staff. All members of the public will participate in listen-only mode. Public comment is invited for non-agenda items during the public forum section of the meeting and on each agenda item. When an item you wish to speak on is called, please follow these steps to make your comment. When the chairman calls a particular item and you wish to speak on that item, click the raise hand button if joining by computer. If joining by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn, I will announce your name and invite you to speak. You may see a message saying the host would like you to unmute your microphone. If you receive this message, click unmute myself and begin speaking. To unmute yourself by phone, dial *6 and begin speaking. Video will not be turned on, only audio. You have up to 3 minutes to make your comments to the Planning Commission. At the end of your 3 minutes, I will ask you to conclude your comments quickly, and I will mute your audio once you're done. Please only press *9 for the items you wish to speak on, as raised hands will be cleared at the end of each item. The agenda for this meeting is on the city's website. As a standard practice, community members are allowed to comment one time on each agenda item. All votes for tonight's meeting will be taken by roll call. We ask for your patience and understanding when there are technical difficulties. This concludes my introductory remarks.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. All right, so it's time for me to give a caveat to the public. For public comment, all public comment section is noted in the agenda, and this is time for members of the public make comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. Under state law, matters presented under this section cannot be discussed or acted upon by the Planning Commission during this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the appropriate time. It's very important to speak directly into the microphone. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Director Cooper, are there any agenda changes?
Thank you, Chair Navarro. We have no agenda changes tonight.
Okay. So the next item
Excuse me, Chair Goff, we do have one person raising their hand for open public comment.
Oh, okay.
I am going to call on Karina Cervante. Karina,
Okay.
I've asked you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. My last name is Cerventi.
Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to read one of the emails I sent to the to the committee. I'm trying to find it. I've been trying to get into this meeting for a while.
Mm.
So basically, it's about the gas stations. You all got my email, I'm assuming, and so I won't repeat what the email said, but I'm just really against having all these gas stations in the 1.6 miles that the Highway 29 strip is. I was kind of disappointed that two of the members have voted no on it, and they were kind of coerced into voting yes. And I feel like the Planning Commission, I understand staff, they see what is fiscally needed for our city, but your job as commissioners is to really know and see what is good for everybody in our community. And gas stations are not the answer for us. There are environmental nightmare, headache. Once, they're being built and used, it takes millions of dollars to clean up. And it takes years and years and years to be repurposed. I sent you guys a little piece of an article that talked about that. And it's just, I feel like it's not, it's not, you're not really thinking about the community and what we need. Like I put on my comment, on my email, you have, you can go walking from one station, from the Chevron station to the Safeway station in 28 minutes, and then driving in 5 minutes, and on a bike about 8 minutes. So it's just, you already have 3 gas stations there. You don't need any more. So I'm just want to encourage you to really see what the community needs and wants, and have in mind what you're going to leave your kids for the future. Because I don't know about you, but I have a 12-year-old that I want to make sure that there's a city that it's clean and it's a good, starting point in his life when he's ready to buy, or in the future. I want to have him to have a good city to live in, not just a bunch of gas stations and like within 2 miles. So thank you so much, and I hope next time, if you feel that something it's not the right fit, do speak up and do vote with what you feel, not with what others are pushing you to do. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
We do actually have 2 other people who've raised their hands, so I'm going to call on Barry. Please unmute yourself, Barry.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted. I want to comment something later on, but my picture doesn't show up here, so when Nicole said unmute yourself, I was wondering how I was going to do that, but it produced an icon. So now I know. I'll comment later on a specific item on SDG 217, I believe it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more, Chris James. Mr. James, I'm asking you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to second what Karina was saying about the gas stations. I know that your hands were tied a little bit because, it's, these things are permitted in the city, and the guidance up until very recently from the general plan and the broad plan allowed these gas stations. But I would like, some further discussion both at the city council, which I think is going to happen very soon. But I encourage you to maybe try and put something on your agenda as well to discuss the gas stations as a whole, and maybe discuss amongst you in the public setting what some of the discussion from the council, because I think if you all get on the same page instead of just trying to discuss it when there's already something being presented to you from staff, an application, it'd be nice to have some sort of discussion so everyone kind of can get on the same page, and maybe even, I guess there's no surprises then. This whole thing, the back and forth last time, I know it, and I know that some of the people in the community were very disappointed that it went through, but I know your hands were tied, and it was basically what was allowed, given the guidance from staff and the city, plans, etc. So, but I don't want any more gas stations in the city. I think we have enough. It doesn't really add anything apart from a couple of tax dollars to the city. It's all people passing through to Napa Valley that would take advantage of it, and it would just be a blight in the city as far as I'm concerned. Okay, thanks so much.
Okay.
Chair Navarro, if I could
James?
just add one quick comment. The City Council next Tuesday is hosting a public workshop and a public hearing on consideration of an urgency ordinance to impose a 45-day moratorium on gas stations. So that's something for our audience, if they're listening, to be aware of, and tune in to the council meeting next Tuesday.
Okay. Yes. Okay, any further public comment?
There's no additional public comment at this time.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. And on the consent calendar is the Planning Commission minutes. Has everybody gotten a chance to review the minutes, and do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 28th, 2021.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mallory,
Aye.
Chair Navarro.
Aye. Okay, all right. So now on to public hearings. So looks like we are set to get a staff report regarding the housing element progress report for 2020.
Yeah. And William Mahee, our planner, will bring you up to speed on our housing elements, an annual event we always look forward to.
Yes.
If I can share the screen with. Everybody seeing that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Planning Commission, Chair Navarro, and members of the public. My name is William. I'm here to give, as Brent said, the annual housing element progress report for 2020. So a little bit of background on the housing report. The last housing element that was approved was from March of 2015. State law requires every jurisdiction to provide an annual housing element report. It highlights what work is finished and accomplished, and what needs to be done in the horizon. The report is, once it's reviewed by the Planning Commission and Council, is sent to the Housing and Community Development Department, as well as the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. So 2020 was definitely a different year, and I do want to talk a little bit about the backdrop of 2020 before we get to the numbers. So housing development during the COVID-19 pandemic. We all had to learn shelter in place, work from home protocols since March of last year. Staff transitioned from meeting folks in person to teleconference meetings. Community Development Department transitioned to a contactless permitting system, which meant no more paper submittals. We went to electronic only, avoided cash transactions, and of course, after permits were issued, there's new protocols for masks and PPE during inspections. Of course, also for the construction industry, developers had challenges finding contractors and all sorts of distribution and supply chain disruptions last year. So that's the asterisk to 2020. But here we go. So 2020 housing status. The housing report is split into three major categories: the entitlements, building permits issued, and certificates of occupancy. Last year, we had 3 ADUs that were entitled and issued. These are becoming more and more popular as folks have learned more about ADU guidelines, and I think impact fees have been reduced. So we will see more of them in the near future. Certificates of occupancy, 2 ADUs were completed last year. I think one of them was a 1,200 square foot one. So we're seeing more of those. Not only are they staying in plan check and issued, but they're being completed. One thing of note is the Village of Vintage Ranch. They're not done yet, but they were able to achieve 60 units from 7 buildings in terms of TCO. So, they're getting close, and most likely they'll be completed towards the end of this year. So,
do you have a sense of their occupancy?
I'm not too sure, but I think it's more than half, but not 100%. It's definitely more than half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the last time I was there, you can't find parking inside. There's a lot of folks there. So, so they're doing pretty well. So, and this is the big chart that the HCD folks looked at mostly. So this is the regional housing needs allocation status, or RHNA, and this is the number of building permits issued that we track every year. The state, from our housing element in 2015, required us to produce 392 units. Up till last year, we've produced 382. So we're basically 90% done in the number of units produced. It's just the allocation of them and how the different tiers of income affordable housing that we are lacking. Last year, we've, as I said in the green columns previously, we produced 3 more units. Those 80 units were low income. So we're getting closer and closer to finishing the low income category. Just 11 more to go. The hard part is to get the very low income to be completed. Mm-hmm. So progress, but still some more work to be done. Wanted to give an update on Napa County area median income. And this is how we get the numbers for the chart previously. It's been creeping up. I think last year, like the area median income for a family of 4 is $104,000, and this year is $109,200. So really neat info, and they publish this every March or April in the HCD site, which is also at the Napa City Housing Authority site. So a bit about the Affordable Housing Fund. I try to track what we took in for the Nexus fees in the last 3 years. Last year, we took in $112,700 for Nexus fees. That was majority of that is thanks to the Amazon building that was issued, and so hopefully we'll see some more. This is by square feet from the development community, and we still have the Village of Vintage Ranch that, as I said, they probably will be completed at the end of this year. They've already started working with the Housing Authority on getting the low-income homes rented out, and so we'll see how they do at the end of this year. And those low-income units will be there for 20 years after the certificate of occupancy. Some program efforts for 2020. In February, we submitted for a home grant for $1 million, and also a Cal Home General Grant for $1 million. I think in July we were awarded that grant, and so we will be working with the Napa Housing Authority to help administrate those funds. In March of last year, we partnered with the Napa Sonoma ADU group. We developed further outreach materials, as well as there's like an ADU calculator on the site now too. So there's a link here which you can click later on and go there, and there's all sorts of materials that can help you when you're planning for an ADU. Also, in March of 2020, the Community Development Department was awarded a LEAP grant for $160,000 for development of pro-housing policies in the future. So March was the big month, and then it moved on to August was the next big program effort. We updated our ADU ordinance to reflect state law changes. I don't know if you guys remember, there was the 6 state laws that came out in January of that year. And we updated our ordinance to match those for ADUs. I think one of the most significant changes is that ADUs, the property owner don't have to live on site anymore within the next 5 years. So those are program efforts. Do want to give a thanks to the Napa Housing Authority. We have a 2-year contract with them, and they help monitor and administrate the Section 8 vouchers, as well as doing various types of outreach on affordable housing issues. So now, talking about 2021, this year and beyond, we do have a lot of housing incoming. So for entitlements, we'll see more ADUs. I think we have at least 3 or 4 in plan check as of now. There are the Oat Hill apartments that are in plan check, and I think we might be taking that project next month to the Planning Commission. That's for 291 apartment units up on Oat Hill. Watson Ranch, Lemos Point, that is, I think, 180 affordable housing units. That just got submitted today. I'm finishing up the developer deposit to be routed tomorrow. So that's going to be a big project. That's on the western side of the Watson Ranch specific plan. Looking forward to seeing how that project goes. As for building permits, these are permits that are in review. Most likely in 2021, the Watson Ranch lots 14 and 15, those are 98 single-family residential homes. Those probably will be in construction this year. And of course, we have our friends at the Canyon Estates. They completed their site improvement plan, so building permits should be coming in soon, and maybe construction at the end of the year. C of O's, the ones that already have the building permits, definitely Village or Vintage Ranch. Altogether, they have 81 units that are in TCO now, and most likely they'll be completed by the end of this year. And then housing programs. We'll see whatever grants are available this year and see how our chances are in getting them. So we're working with Napa, the Napa Housing Authority to see which grants are available, and we'll work on trying to get them. And of course, we have the big housing element update. So that's going to be part of the general plan update, and hopefully we can get that started towards the middle of this year. So those are the projects that are coming up, and these are the next steps. So today it's giving the presentation to the Planning Commission Most likely, we'll give a presentation to the City Council in March 16th, and then finish up the report to send it off prior to April 1st, just like taxes, as Brent says. And that's it for my presentation. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions of William or the presentation? Commissioner Wong.
Thank you. William, I have a question. You mentioned, I guess it's in the very low income category that we have the most that remains to be done to meet our goal.
Yeah.
So do we as a city, do we have a strategy to encourage that or somehow achieve that goal? Can you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Well, we do have the inclusionary housing ordinance that requires new developers to provide at least a certain percentage of their new development for affordable housing. And as like a carrots approach, there's like a density bonus programs that if they provide more, then they can probably develop at a higher density for big developments. So, you know, it just got updated in, I think, last October, but we'll see how folks want to take advantage of that. Brent, do you have something to add?
Well, these new incentives only became effective last October, because I'm just thinking if they haven't really been effective in the past, how do we know they'll work in the future? But they're new incentives or they're existing incentives?
They're updated. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Wong, if I could add that too, the obligation with the regional housing needs is to have land and policies available in the town to enable home at all income groups to be constructed. The city itself doesn't construct the homes,
Yes.
but we do have policies and funding and such to facilitate it. I think one of the realities in a small town is you don't get a housing project every day. You know, in bigger cities, it's like a more diversified portfolio. You've always got something going on at all times. On a little town like us, you know, we get a project every few years. The next big one that William mentioned is the 186 unit low income project for Watson Ranch. And so that one's going to be a big project. So we kind of get these things once in a while, and then the intervening years, it kind of doesn't look like much is going on. So I think that's kind of more of a reality of being a small town. But like I said, the obligation that the city has is to have the land available with proper zoning and then policies in place to facilitate housing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Questions? Okay, hearing none. I think then it's time to open public hearing regarding the housing element report for 2020. So, Ms. Jones, is there any public comment? You're muted. Nicole, I think you're muted.
I apologize. There we go. So far, I have no public comment, but if there are any participants, please raise your hands now, and we will call on you to speak. Going once. Oh, nobody's raising their hand.
Okay, with that, seeing no public comment or anybody raising their hands on Zoom, we will close the public hearing at this point for the Housing Element Progress Report for 2020. Thank you, Mr. Heath, for a great report. Appreciate it. Okay, so, next item, 5.2, the SDG
Mr. Chairman,
Commerce 270.
excuse me.
Yes.
I think you ought to have a motion to receive and file the report.
Oh, I didn't realize we had an action item for this. Thank you. Okay. So can I get a motion to receive and file the Housing Element Progress Report for 2020?
I'll make a motion to receive and file the 2020 housing report.
Okay,
I will second.
okay. Commissioner Goff seconds. With that, Ms. Jones, can we have a roll call? To accept
Yes,
the-
Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Malari,
Aye.
and Chair Navarro.
Aye. Okay, so next item is 5.2 of the public hearing for the SDG Commerce 217 project. We're going to receive a staff report.
Thank you, Chair Navarro. This is a continued item from your last meeting, and William He has a brief presentation for you. And then just as a heads up, the applicant has a presentation as well.
Okay, very good. The
Just a
floor is
second
yours,
here.
Mr. B.
I have to take off my housing hat and put on my development hat. Right. All right. Can everybody see okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, good evening again. My name is William. I'm here to present the SDG Commerce 217 conditional use permit application. So, I have a short agenda for the project. I'll show you the vicinity map, project location, also have some site photos and the site plan. And then we'll go over some site-specific issues and move on to a brief overview of the public comments that occurred for this project. And then we'll wrap up with the staff recommendation and SECO compliance report. So the SDG 217 project is it's right to the north of the previous SDG Commerce project. It is about 10 acres in size for the parcel, and it is accessible from Commerce Court north of the site. To the west, we have the wastewater treatment facility, and to the east, we have a vacant parcel that's north of the paintball jungle. There is no vehicle access from Wetlands Edge Road or Eucalyptus Drive. The project itself is 217,000 square feet wine warehouse with approximately, I think, 10% reserved for offices in that warehouse. It's in the recreation zone, and the warehouse is on a 10.39 acre parcel itself. The project features 134 parking spaces and 21 trucking docks, and also about 64,000 square feet of landscaping. Here's some photos of the site when the project was conceived. It was these photos are from December of 2019. The one in the upper left is a person standing from Commerce Court facing west, and then the one on the lower right is the same person facing northwest. And in the distance of that second photo, you can see the warehouses from the Commerce Court area. So right now, it's just a vacant parcel. Have an aerial photo of the site right now. It looks pretty expansive, but relatively flat and ready for development. Here is the site plan. Overall, the site looks kind of like a rhombus. The distribution center is 217,000 square feet, and then there's two access points on the northeast of the parcel and the southeast of the parcel. On the back of the parcel to the west is the bar retention facility, and then there's also a roundabout in the northwestern side of the site. All the parking is on the north side of the site. Here's the architecture, an elevation of the architecture. The building is about 35 feet tall, which is the max allowed on site. Nice clean lines, giant bay windows for the office areas, and a tall parapet to screen all any future rooftop mechanical equipment if they choose to do so. Here's actually the SDG Commerce 330 building, and that's pretty much how the building for 217 will look in the future. Clean lines. The only difference that the colors and material board showed is that instead of the burgundy trim, the 217 building will have a navy blue trim. So it's kind of a nice continuation of the warehouses, and pretty good colors overall.
What is the height of the 330 site?
I think it's 36 at the top. It kind of slopes down to 35 and sort of average. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just landscaping plan. I'm going to kind of just skim over that because the applicant has a better landscaping plan picture, and he's going to talk more about it. But it's 64,000 square feet with 54 trees and a lot of trees placed at the entryway. So the second site-specific item that I want to talk about, first being the landscaping, is transportation and VMT, which is vehicle miles traveled. I want to give a brief overview of this because this is probably the first project that will include VMT. So state law SB 743 went into effect in July of 2020. And the main change is that for transportation, project impact shall be measured by vehicle miles traveled and no longer level of service. VMT is generally the average trip length multiplied by the trips generated by the project. And for this project, excuse me, the applicant's traffic consultant, GHD, saw that the project would generate about 2,214 vehicle miles traveled, whereas the site itself has a baseline of 1,485. So to achieve the reduction, they'll have to find a mitigation that reduces it by 729 vehicle miles traveled. And that's where they had the recommendation to complete the bike path that is the stretch that's between where the intersection of Wetlands Edge and Eucalyptus, all the way up to where the bike path ends now at the south side of SDG 330. It's about an 800 foot stretch, and the gap would be completed by the applicant. Some pictures of the bike path as it is today. This was taken in July. The top left photo has the bike path entryway from the front of the SDG 330 building, and then the bottom right photo shows the basically where it ends, the southern end of it, right next to the Pink Ball Jungle site. So pretty good completion there. And that leads us to public comments. This is just an overview of the public comments. The initial study mitigated negative declaration report had a public comment period from December 18th to January 18th of this year. We received 3 comments during that time. We had one from Caltrans that wanted a clarification on the VMT analysis. The Department of Fish and Wildlife also had some recommendations on the biology report, which the applicant responded to. And then we also had a comment from the Laborers International Union of North America, which requested some revisions to the transportation and wanted clarification on the biology, air quality, and GHG emission sections. So those were responded to by the applicant. And we also have 2 letters that we received today. One was a letter of support from the Chamber of Commerce, and then a follow-up letter from the Laborers Union, which I think we were forwarded to everyone today around 4:30 today. So those comments were received. All in all, the environmental determination, according to the CEQA team, the mitigated negative declaration was reviewed in accordance to the California Environmental Quality Act and found that there are no significant effect on the environment with mitigation measures. And the mitigation measures looked at air quality, biology, cultural, geology, hazards, hydrology, noise, transportation, and also utilities. So, with all that being said, staff's recommendation is to approve the SDG Commerce 217 mitigated negative declaration with the mitigated negative monitoring report, as well as the approve the SDG 217 CUP project. So that's my first half of my presentation. Do you have any questions for me before the applicant comes on?
Just to clarify, then, this is 2 items before us to vote on.
Yes,
that's correct, right? Okay. The mitigation report and then the
CUP.
Yeah. Okay. Any commissioners have a quick question about the presentation before we go to the next presentation?
I had a question, and I'm not sure if it's best asked now or later, so I can ask it, and if it's better answered later, William, that's fine with me.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so on one of the public comments we received today from the union, I guess because this vehicle miles traveled is all new to us, just becoming effective now, they said because the calculation was redone, that the MND needed to be recirculated. Can you comment on that aspect that they brought up?
I think that, yeah, I did review that comment, but I think that's a question better for the applicant as well as after their presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other commissioner questions about Mr. He's presentation? Okay, seeing none, to move forward with the applicant's presentation.
I can breathe and chew gum at the same time. Good evening, Chairman Navarro and Commissioners. My name is Neil Thompson. I represent the applicant Stravinsky Development Group. We also have the following consultants in the Zoom audience who will be available to answer your questions at the conclusion of this presentation. They are Richard Grassetti, the CEQA consultant and the author of the initial study, Sarah Lynch of Monk & Associates, the project biologist, Paul Miller of the RCH Group, an expert on noise and air quality issues, Todd Tregenza of GHD, the project's traffic consultant, and David Ivester of Briscoe, Ivester & Basil, our CEQA attorney. So to illustrate our project, we've prepared a presentation, and I'll see if I can get this going. Viewable by everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can see it.
William He in his staff report presented the many of the specifics of this project, what we call the Commerce 217 for short. since all of you participated in the hearing for the Commerce 330 almost exactly 2 years ago to the day, you may be thinking like that famous New York Yankees baseball catcher Yogi Berra. It's like deja vu all over again. This project is about 1/3 smaller than the Commerce 330, but other than that, everything is essentially the same. So in many respects, this hearing is a referendum on whether we lived up to our commitments in our presentation of 2 years ago. As you will recall, the Commerce 330 received a considerable level of public interest, so I'll again speak to the many issues that were raised and resolved 2 years ago. Following groups: location, school impact and noise; 2, operational uses and traffic; 3, efficiency, sustainability and reduced carbon footprint; 4, wetlands and wildlife; and 5, nighttime light and views. Going to the first, location, school, and impact, the Commerce 217 building will be 700 feet north of the existing Commerce 330, leaving an intervening empty 10-acre parcel between the two. The Commerce 330 was completed last year and is now fully occupied and operational. As cited, the Commerce 217 is approximately 1,500 feet north of the nearest school building and approximately 2,200 feet north of the nearest residential area south of Eucalyptus Drive. So as effectively twice the distance away from the school and the residential area is the Commerce 330. A noise study technical report was prepared by the RCH group of Rancho Cordova. The results of this noise technical report and the prior RCH group report for the Commerce 330 provides the following information. With the distance attenuation, the estimated noise level at the nearest residence south of Eucalyptus Drive, 2,200 feet away from the project entrance on Commerce Court, would be significantly below the city standard of 65 decibels. With the distance attenuation of the estimated noise level at the nearest school building, 1,500 feet away, would be significantly below the state standard of 70 decibels for schools and the city standard of 65. And 3, with the distance and the building screening attenuation provided by the 330 building, the estimated noise level at the nearest future Clark Ranch building, 1,100 feet away, would be again significantly below the city standard of 65 decibels. Note that these numbers are lower than the existing average ambient noise levels, and therefore the project operations will have a minimal effect on the average ambient noise levels in the vicinity of the project. The same can be said of the noise levels at night. The issue of noise during construction is also addressed in the technical report, and the implementation of 2 mitigation measures called Noise 1 and Noise 2 during construction will reduce these impacts to less than significant level. The project sponsor, that's us, will give prior notification to the city and any residents that has in the past or in the future request prior notification whenever nighttime construction may occur anytime between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., just as it did during the construction of the Commerce 330. Again, Paul Miller of the RCH group is in the audience and can answer any questions you may have. Moving on to operational uses and traffic. Clearly, you can see from this photo that Commerce Court vehicular traffic cannot go through the Wetlands Edge Court. All private vehicle traffic will enter and leave by the way of Green Island Road. The only traffic between these 2 points, as shown on this picture, are between here and there, and those are controlled by access gates controlled by city fire and city police only, and city maintenance crews. The Green Island Community Facilities District has been created by a vote of the Green Island industrial property owners. This new district and its funding mechanism will improve access to this project from the north along a widened and upgraded Green Island Road, thereby reducing the temptation to park on the south side of Clark Ranch and walking almost a half a mile to the building. The zoning ordinance is clear in that potential future uses are limited to wineries, including viticulture-related activities such as bottling, storage, logistics, distribution, wine packing, and wine-related services. Therefore, no coke, no Mazzetta, no Berry Callebaut chocolate, no general or light industrial uses that are not winery related will be allowed. Bear in mind that all subsequent modifications to the building, such as offices incidental to the primary use, toilet facilities, and storage racking, will also require building permits, which will require a sign-off by the planning department. Possible future uses may trigger a requirement for a conditional use permit, which will provide opportunity for additional public input. The normal operational hours of the facility will be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Trucks are only accepted between these hours. No truck movements at night nor on weekends. Some forklift driver shifts are split to provide after-hour normal hours, internal product movements such as order picking, delivery put away, or general product reorganization. These activities could start as early as 5 a.m. and last as long as 12 a.m. However, all activity would be inside the insulated concrete building walls, so there would be not any exterior noise associated with the activity. There is no outside activity other than vehicles arriving and departing. I would also like to remind everyone that there will be no hazardous chemicals on the premises, no ammonia and no chlorine. This is not a production facility, and the wine held in storage is a food-grade commodity ready for distribution. Since our last Planning Commission hearing 2 years ago for the Commerce 330, the state of California has implemented a new traffic reduction method that is aimed at reducing greenhouse gases. This new method is known as VMT, or Vehicle Miles Traveled. The application of this methodology has only been mandated by the state since July 1 of last year, so it is fairly new to all of us. The bottom line of it is to encourage the use of other forms of transportation: carpool, vanpool, bus, train, ferry, bike, e-bike, walking, etc., rather than a single occupant car. Although the city is currently not serviced by bus or train, the city is well on its way to have an excellent bike-to-work network and corridor from Highway 37 in Vallejo on the south to and beyond the Napa Airport that avoids the necessity of using Highway 29. Unfortunately, at this time, there are two significant gaps in that corridor. One gap is Devlin Road, north of Green Island Road, and the other gap is along Wetlands Edge Court between the Eucalyptus Drive on the south and the recently completed Commerce 330 bike path on the south. We have participated in several meetings with the city planning, public works, and parks and recreation staff in the development of this bike path layout. As a part of this project, we will complete a 10-foot wide Class 1 multi-use path along the west side of the Wetlands Edge Court adjacent to Clark Ranch to close this gap in the bike path network. I'd like to point out in this rendering here that we have the bike path that starts at the north and comes down directly adjacent to Clark Ranch and ties into Eucalyptus Drive on the south and directly across where the bike path now comes up on the west side of Wetlands Edge Drive. The dark paving is the street that the school district is putting in, and that is the extent of what they're doing. They are stopping their road at that point and going no further. The balance of this going on up is access for emergency vehicles, fire, police, maintenance, etc., for city maintenance to get on the path and go north, and then also access to the paintball jungle and the couch property to the east. That is why the bike path is on the west side of the road. The city also has, as I understand it, some intention on widening this street at some point in the future, though we have no idea what that might be. At this time, we were provided with a letter that you received this afternoon from Luzo Drury. We got that about 3 hours ago, and I would like to call on Todd Vergenza of GHD, our traffic expert, to provide some background in response to the matters addressed in that letter. We can do that, please.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Commissioners, my name is Todd Tregenza with GHD. I'm a transportation planner with GHD. I've been here for about 14, 15 years. And I want to give a brief overview of some of the comments in the letter and how we would like to respond to them. And then I'm happy to answer any more detailed questions about it later. The first point in the letter was really a question of inconsistency with the guidelines that we ourselves were citing. And I just want to assure everyone that that is not the case. The analysis is based on supplemental research prepared as an extension of that research. It's documented on the research webpage, pedbikeinfo.org, and it's listed under the methodology. It changed the buffer distances for it gets very wonky very quickly, but it changed some of the parameters, and I'm happy to go into any more detail about that. But the methodology we used is defensible and consistent with our cited research team. The second point brought up was a question about accrediting or attributing mitigation to an already completed section of trail. And that really mischaracterizes what our analysis is stating. What we're showing, and the picture paints 1,000 words, is that the gap is currently creating an inability to connect the existing residential neighborhoods south of Eucalyptus to the employment destinations to the north. We know we have data that there is appetite for biking to commute in Napa County and in American Canyon that is unmet, this latent demand. We are not attempting to accredit mitigation to an already completed trail. Our analysis intent is simply to document what we anticipate could be the mode shift from cars to bikes through the completion of this bike trail gap. And again, any more questions about that, I'm happy to entertain at the end. The third and final point I'll address is the question of the average trip length that bicycle commuters are willing to make. And the comment letter introduced some data that started at UC Davis through their Institute of Transportation Studies, was picked up by CARB, California Air Resource Board, and it showed a 1.5 mile trip length. This is very short. The UCD research itself, in fact, has a lengthy paragraph explaining the conservative nature of that estimate and pointing to longer surveys that they themselves assembled as part of that research, including one that was a intercept survey of bicycle commuters in Los Angeles. That was a 7 mile average trip length each way. We ended up not using those because the sample sizes were small, and we used some research we found funded by Portland State University that used GPS trackers and a larger data set and really complemented our analysis with good defensible data that showed a 5.2 mile average commute trip length for bicycles. This meets the everyday, I would say, smell test. I think a 5 mile bike commute is something that we can defend. And furthermore, it is a more directly applicable data point to this project, as is based on commute trip length, which the 1.5 miles from CARB was not. It included schools and shopping and other trip lengths that are demonstrably shorter in length by their nature. So that's just a brief overview of our response. Again, I could go on for a half hour, but I really would rather not unless there are additional questions about this. So with that, I'll turn it over back to Mr. Thompson.
Just one real quick one. Could you address the comparison of urban versus suburban, or Portland versus American Canyon?
Sure. Yeah, so the characteristics of Portland are obviously more urbanized than American Canyon. However, American Canyon is still within an urban context. The household survey that the CARB analysis was based on explicitly oversampled rural areas. That may be a factor contributing to the lower trip length. That's documented in the household travel survey that was underlying it. So I'm happy to point out those references as well. But we believe a 5.2 mile trip length is reasonable in this area. You have a very high quality facility here, already partially built. And we have proof, and we've demonstrated in our study that there are matches between employment and residents along the corridor. We do believe that this will be a popular commute option for folks that don't want to travel on Highway 29, whether in a car or by bike.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neal or Thompson?
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. While we're looking at this, the red line that's highlighted here that starts at the south end of this housing portion that's just north of Highway 37, to this point, which is at Commerce and Green Island Road, you go back, is 4.3 miles. Well within the 5 miles that Todd was talking about. And then the green line from that point on up to the airport industrial area is another 2.8. So 7.1 miles. Wow, that's amazing, because we know what the employment population here in the Green Island industrial area is, and of course the expanding employment base right here just south of the airport, and then of course the very large employment base up at the airport on Airport Road, makes this into a perfect access to get to work that keeps everybody off of 29. So it's working out great. Fagan Creek Bridge has just been completed, so that's gone, and Devlin is coming, and of course Green Island is really already underway. The railroad's already done their work, so that stretch right there is already underway. Everything else is complete, so it's just the Devlin Road. So I think this is a wonderful idea for bike to work, especially with the new electric bicycles. Holy smokes. Those things can travel 15, 20 miles an hour. Not a problem to get to work. Anyway, moving on. Number 3, efficiency, sustainability, and reduce carbon footprint. 2 years ago, there was a question of regarding our carbon footprint. And here's a short list of how we and our tenants reduce our carbon footprint, increase our energy efficiency and sustainability. We achieve traffic reduction by maximizing storage capacity in one facility. The larger the building, the greater the logistics efficiency and greater reduction in traffic. Night air cooling. We use night air cool from the cool air from the bay to cool the interior of the facility, which in turn reduces the use of electrical energy in the refrigeration system. We use high density wall insulation on the inside of the warehouse and a high density roof insulation. We use a light colored reflective roof on top called a cool roof membrane. You'll also notice that we don't have any mechanical equipment on the roof. We don't like penetrations that lead to leaks. So it's just a one simple membrane on top. We use low volatile organic compounds, paintings and coatings. We implement stormwater management plans and use bioretention swales and bioretention ponds. We use erosion and sedimentation controls. 100% LED light fixtures throughout the project. We use motion sensor controls on most of the interior lights in the warehouse. With the exception of the interior loading dock, the interior of the warehouse is fairly dark most of the time. We provide dimming on exterior lights, dusk to dawn, with motion sensors to bring them up to 100% for security purposes. We provide a solar-ready roof. We recycle construction materials. We recycle operational packaging materials. We use reclaimed water for landscape irrigation, toilets, and urinals. We plant drought-tolerant landscape plants and trees. We use drip irrigation and smart irrigation controllers that meter the water use to match the environmental conditions. And of course, our construction of the bike trail to close the existing 800-foot gap will allow and hopefully encourage biking and walking to work for local residents, to say nothing of expanding recreational opportunities. Thank you for pointing out that what we take for granted is in many cases really important to recognize. Moving on to wetlands and wildlife. The matters brought up by the Michael Lazo in his letter of January 19th and submitted to the Planning Commission in your packet have been addressed by Richard Grassetti, the secret consultant, and our consulting experts in peer reviews. It should be noted that the responses do not constitute a substantial revision to the draft initial study and do not result in new impacts or new mitigation measures. When I get done, I will turn the mic over to David Ivester, who can talk about mitigation measures and need for, or not a need to republish it. We are more than well aware of the environmental sensitivity of not only this project, but all of North Slough from Napa River down here, all the way up to 29. Over the past 22 years, we've worked with the city, the State Department of Fish and Wildlife, the State Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the Army Corps of Engineers in the development and construction of 8 refrigerated wine storage warehouses, all similar to this project, that are directly adjacent to North Slough. Working with Monk and Associates, our consulting biologist in the city, we have enhanced the ecological resources along over 8,600 lineal feet of North Slough and have preserved over 37 acres of wetlands and riparian habitat in perpetuity for the benefit of the wildlife, the city, and the residents of the city. Along with creating additional wetlands and uplands, we've planted cover trees along the banks of the slough to shield smaller birds as they work their way up and down the slough, so they are not exposed to marauding raptors from above. In addition to each of the 3 bridges that we have constructed over North Slough, they pre-span over the slough without impacting the bed and bank of the slough so that wildlife can freely move up and down the slough without having to cross any of the roads above. It's a real treat to watch ducks and geese on the wetland ponds, and especially the deer and other wildlife that come out about 5:30 in the evening. We are watching a video of some of the wetland and riparian habitat that we have constructed, enhanced, and preserved over the past 22 years. Please note that this wildlife corridor is surrounded by buildings in the Green Island Industrial Park, and yet wildlife flourishes here. Also note that how we've treated the land on the south side of the slough as compared to the way others have treated the land on the other side. From the city's viewpoint, this is the best kind of wildlife preserve that it can hope to have. It can be enjoyed almost like a park. It has no public maintenance costs, and yet it still pays full property taxes. What could be a better proposition for the residents? As in our past, our consulting biologist, Monk and Associates, will conduct nesting surveys in accordance with the prescribed mitigation measures and regulatory protocols prior to any work on the project site. And the project site is just coming up over to the left-hand side, right over there. It's North Slough going on out to the bay. This is an example of what we don't do. We don't construct projects that create grand walled canyons that are incapable of supporting, nurturing, and sustaining wildlife communities. Nighttime light and views. During the meeting 2 years ago concerning the Commerce 330 project, we talked about nighttime lighting and dark sky concerns. Here are several recent nighttime photos of the completed Commerce 330 project. We will continue to use pictures on the 217 project that are certified by the International Dark Sky Association as being dark sky friendly, meaning that these minimize glare while reducing light trespass and sky glow. These fixtures are fully shielded and minimize the amount of blue light on the nighttime environment. We have intentionally attempted to light only the horizontal walking and driving pavement surfaces for safety and security purposes and not the building walls. Here are the colored elevations of the building. Please note that we've utilized a color scheme that is different yet complementary to the existing Commerce 330 project. Here are two images of the Commerce 330 taken at the corner of Eucalyptus and Wetlands Edge, 2,000 feet south of the proposed Commerce 217 building. The one on the left is a photo montage of the proposed Commerce 330 building. The one on the right is a recent photograph of the completed Commerce 330 building from a higher vantage point, just to be above the school construction. As we predicted 2 years ago, not much of the building is visible. Actually, the only really visible structure is the temporary construction trailer, which will be relocated north about 1,100 feet at the start of the Commerce 217 construction. You can barely see the building right in there. And that's the construction trailer you can see. These two images are this is the proposed image that we showed 2 years ago. This is the completed bike path. So I think it worked out pretty well. It's my understanding it's been pretty well received by all the stakeholders, the cyclists, walkers, city fire, city police, etc. So if you haven't noticed, we're pretty proud of what we do, and as such, we continue to own much of what we have built over the past 25 years in American Canyon. At the end of the day, we need to be able to show our spouses and children that this is what we've created and that we are proud of it. Also, because we are active members of the community, we must hold up our end of the bargain to encourage and promote the welfare of the community. This is not a one-way street. I hope that I have adequately shown through physical evidence of the Commerce 330 project that we have responded to the questions that were raised at the meeting 2 years ago, and that this project, the Commerce 217, will likewise contribute to the welfare of the community. So, I thank you for the opportunity to present our project to you and respectfully request your approval and a vote in favor of the project. I'd like to answer any of your questions and also note that David Ivester can speak to the question that Commissioner Wong brought up regarding recirculation. Thank you.
Yes, why don't we go with Mr. Ivester?
Okay, I'm happy to address that. It shouldn't take long. CEQA Guidelines 15073.5 addresses exactly this point of when you need to recirculate a mitigated negative declaration that has not yet been adopted. And it basically says that if it's necessary to substantially revise the mitigated neg deck after it has been put out for public comment, then recirculation would be warranted. And substantial revision is specifically defined to encompass basically two types of circumstances. If an entirely new significant environmental impact has been identified that requires, some new mitigation measure, then that would be one sort of a substantial revision. We obviously don't have any new environmental impact identified here. And the other is that if proposed mitigation measures have been determined to be ineffective to lessen the impact to less than significance, and new mitigation measures are required, then that would be a substantial revision. We don't have that here either. The applicant has basically proposed this extending the bicycle path to close the gap and thereby provide a continuous commute via bike along this corridor, and has merely decided that in light of some information that it requires that path to be extended 800 feet instead of 300 feet to accomplish closing that gap, that it's going to do that. But the mitigation measure is to close the gap. So there's nothing really new there, and there's certainly no new environmental impact associated with that. So under the guideline, I don't think recirculation is necessary at all.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Thompson, to your presentation?
I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay. All right, so the presentations have concluded. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I think first it might be appropriate at this time, both your consideration of the environmental issue and the CUP are evidentiary matters. This is a public hearing. It'd be a proper time now if there are any disclosures by any members of the commission for ex parte communications from the applicant or others.
Okay, we haven't done that in a while, but we can. Should we do a roll call around that? Do you think that's the best approach?
I think the best way is, individual commissioners are going to know whether they were contacted or not. They can just indicate that fact, and then it's in the record if they were in fact contacted.
Okay, all right. So before commissioners, your questions, can you disclose if there's been any ex parte communications regarding this matter? Okay, hearing none, I have none. Oh, Commissioner Wong?
I have not spoken to the applicant, but I did want to say that I did visit the 330 property site yesterday and the proposed new site as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, any questions of the commissioners before we go to public comment? Open the public hearing. Okay. Okay, Commissioner Wong, I see.
Yeah, I do have a number of questions, but I'm happy if someone just has a few questions if they want to go first.
Okay. I just had a couple quick ones, so I'll go ahead and take you up on that. For Mr. Thompson, you had mentioned about employment in areas nearby the SDC sites. Could you compare what the employment is currently at the 330 to what it would you estimate, or what has been estimated at 217 at the new?
Well, the occupancy and the functions are going to be essentially identical as to what is there now. I don't know what the employment numbers are on the 330 today, but since the 330 is I should say the 217 is going to be 1/3 smaller, I would anticipate the employment level to be 1/3 smaller. So So right now we're estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 employees.
Okay. All right. And then a couple more. Is there any contemplation of electrical vehicle charging stations? And I also just think of not that far down the road, electrical trucks. Is there resources or infrastructure to accommodate for that?
We have installed them in 2 of our buildings so far, but usually we install them because there is somebody to use them. So I would say at this point in time, it's not something that if we put it out there, they will come. I'm not sure, but we have done it in the past.
And then, do you have any sense of the amount of office space that may come? You said that there's that potential.
Well,
which office spaces in the 330?
I think in the 330, we're just finishing up 3 offices in there, and there might be somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 to 8,000 square feet total over the 3. It's incidental to the operation. Most of the employees are inside the warehouse, so most of the office space are break rooms, restrooms, and incidental clerk office type stuff.
Okay. All right. And then my final one is to Mr. Investor. Regarding the CEQA, there was a citation of CEQA guidelines 15.384B. They emphasize that about the expert opinion supported by facts. Do you have any comments on that, since you're a pretty well-versed person on CEQA? I could give you maybe more time to take a look at that.
I'm sorry, was that a question to me?
Yes, it was.
Yes. I don't have that guideline section in front of me, but I think that deals with the situation where you have an EIR and you basically have experts reaching opposite conclusions. And in that sort of a circumstance, a lead agency has the discretion to decide which of the expert opinions it thinks is right and go with it, and that will constitute substantial evidence supporting the lead agency's decision. We don't really have that circumstance here. We're not in an EIR context, so it's more of a question of, we do have an expert in GHD and Monk and Associates on, depending on which subject matter you're talking about. And of course, they've offered their analysis and their opinions. They've provided the substantial evidence upon which they base those opinions. And so that's pretty much that. On the flip side, with respect to the recent comments, particularly with respect to VMT, I don't think we're in a position where we have 2 experts reaching opposite conclusions, because I don't know that Mr. Lazo would hold himself out as an expert on traffic impacts and traffic analysis. He's a lawyer, not a traffic engineer, and so, of course, you need to take into account what he says, but I don't think we would be in a situation where we would need to regard that as an expert opinion.
Okay.
I'm going to weigh in on that also.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's, I think there's 2 things that I'd like to add. And, first of all, Mr. Thompson went through a comparison with the 330 project. And I think it's worth noting for the record that the comment letter initially received from Lazo Drory, and that received on the 330 project are very, very similar. Right? Meaning the initial comment letter, and then I'll comment on the one that's dated today, January 25. Both of them set forth the same standard of proof with respect to the mitigated negative declaration that was at issue. Same language, same cases. The 217 letter adds thresholds of significance on page 4 to 5, which is kind of an extrapolation of the fair argument standard that already appears in the letter. The traffic arguments start out the same. In the 217 letter, they're modified for the facts that are applicable here, meaning in the mitigated negative declaration on pages 5 to 6. The sensitive species arguments use the same Smallwood site visit from 2019, and they supplement it with a visit in 2021. There's a slight variation in the bird species discussed. There's the discussion about the northern harrier as being different, and then that's the subject of a response that's appropriate. Greenhouse gases is added to 217, but was the proper subject of the response to comment, an extensive response to comment. I would agree with Mr. Ivester about the letter today, dated the 25th from Michael Lazo. It's very well drafted and very well reasoned, but it's legal argument and it's not an expert opinion. And under the standard of fair argument for mitigated negative declarations, argument without evidence is insufficient. All right. So, and to reinforce that, Mr. Trezinga from GHD came in and added the 3-point explanation, which, you know, parallels the argument advanced in the Lazo letter dated today, claiming insufficiency in the analysis, and therefore there being fair argument based on substantial evidence. So I would respectfully advise the Commission, it's a well-reasoned argument, but argument without supporting evidence doesn't meet the fair argument standard. So it did come in, later this afternoon, but I think the way it's broken down is susceptible to that type of analysis, and that would be our advice to you.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. You want to go forward, Commissioner Wong?
Thank you, Chair Navarro.
You're welcome.
So I had a couple of questions about the project. And I was hoping, Mr. Thompson, that you could help me out with some answers. In the Chamber of Commerce letter supporting this project, they mentioned that all the wine warehouses are full. Is that your experience with the 330 warehouse and any of the other 8 wine warehouses that you mentioned in this area?
Yes, it is. If that were not the case, we wouldn't propose to build one. They're pretty much based on demand, and so right now we're seeing that demand continues to grow. It's been growing ever since we arrived, and as I've said before, American Canyon has established itself as being the center for the distribution of wine in California. There's just no doubt about it. It's a great marketplace for it.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions, or I guess the area that's come up a lot recently at some of the Planning Commission meetings and City Council meetings is future use of buildings. As you envision it now, this is a wine warehouse, but we do have, significant climate change. And if at some point in time, I guess there is the possibility that the Napa Valley may not be as conducive to growing grapes as it is now. And it is entirely possible that our wine industry may not be as strong as it is now. Do you have, is the warehouse as it is now so specific that it could easily be retrofitted for another use? I'm just kind of curious about that aspect, or is it so singular that it's for a winery?
No, it's not. It's not. In terms of a distribution center or storage building, absolutely, it's a multi-use possibility. The fact that they're refrigerated also is going to be an asset to anybody that wants to come in. With regard to the wine industry, you know that the wine industry is doing everything they can to figure out what are the new grape varieties that are going to deal with the warmer climate. So they're not going to go away. They're going to morph. They're going to replant for different varieties to take care of higher temperatures, etc. I don't anticipate them going away.
Okay, thank you. When you were talking earlier about the types of activities that could be held at the warehouse, which is in a recreation area, I wanted to confirm, looking at who's at your 330 warehouse, they mostly seem to be wholesale type operations. Does the use of the property include retail wine operations, or is it mostly wholesale operations?
No, there's no retail whatsoever. They are distribution centers. They store wine and they ship out wine. There's no retail.
Okay, great, thank you. And moving on, I do want to say that I watched with great interest the 330 warehouse going up. It was quite an impressive sight to see everything being poured. And I have walked on the new bike path. It's beautiful. I like it very much.
Thank you.
I did want to say, I went out there a couple times over Thanksgiving last year, and it was a holiday, and I think maybe it was the Friday after, so it was very empty out there, but the path was beautiful. But what I did notice, and this may not necessarily be a question for you, maybe something more for Brent, but there are sidewalks in the immediate area after you leave the bike path, but then there's some parts where there's no sidewalks at all. So, Brent, can you speak to a little bit about, I know we have a lot of paving projects and other development happening out there. Are there going to be more sidewalks in the Green Island area to take advantage of this bike path for pedestrians?
Commissioner Mogg, you're referring to the older areas of the Green Island Industrial Park that don't have sidewalks?
Yeah, so when you leave the bike path, you can't walk there. I mean, you can walk like a couple blocks, but then you kind of run out of sidewalk.
Yeah, as you go north towards Green Island Road, the sidewalks are missing. Well, that's an excellent issue. It's, I think, always a matter of priorities for funding on infrastructure in the city.
Mm-hmm.
There are gaps in sidewalks in the residential areas of the city, which I think many of us would feel if we had limited funds for sidewalk construction, we'd want to maybe focus it for residential areas. I know that we have the James Road project at the moment going on that's helping to bring a sidewalk to an old stretch of town that has a lot of pedestrians. And that will get a sidewalk. The Donaldson Way was another one that's recently made with new sidewalks. So it is an issue. I know that we all value sidewalks. The city does have a pedestrian master plan, but I think it's kind of sequenced as funding is available. I'm not answering your question with regards to industrial, but I think overall that's probably a lower priority than focusing money on the residential areas. One final thought is, I know that with the Green Island road improvements, there's road improvements and paving and the other roads too. I can check and see if maybe there's a sidewalk component to that as well. I don't know myself, but I could find out as a follow-up to the commission.
Well, one thought I had was when we talk about extending, or I guess an offset for the VNT for this project, and extending the bicycle route from Commerce Court down to Wetlands Edge Road, would it have been as effective, more effective, to instead have more sidewalks on the Green Island piece for maybe workers who may be walking? It was just a thought that I had as well, another alternative per se. That's why I'm.
Mr. Tregenza could probably comment on that, but I believe the intent with the bike path, it's a means to prevent people from taking their vehicles. And so it's not likely folks would walk to work unless they lived really close by, but a bicycle really does stretch out the opportunity to be able to get to work, some distance that you probably wouldn't be comfortable doing walking.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson, can you speak to, I guess, with the current 330 warehouse, maybe some of your other wine warehouses, I'm guessing there's probably bicycle parking already available. Do you have any feel for how many of your employees currently cycle to work?
Well, yes, we do have bicycle parking facilities in each of our buildings. Number one is a requirement of the city code. I know that they use some of the buildings are very large. They use bicycles I'm going to call it on the campus of the building. I haven't seen anybody riding around inside the warehouse, but that's not to say that they don't do it. But the tenant in a portion of the 330 and the tenant that is anticipated to go in the 217 is also in, I think, about 5 or 6 different facilities in the American Canyon area. So I would anticipate that they might bike between the buildings because they move around to, forklift drivers from one building to the next. I do know that I know specifically of 2 employees that is one of our tenants. They live in American Canyon, and they would dearly love to be able to bike to work. As a matter of fact, one of them said that he's looking forward to being able to drop his kids off at the new school and then continue on biking up to his project that's up on Hannah Drive. So I do know that there are some people that really want to do that.
Well, there does exist a gravel road right now, so it is perfectly possible to bike down the existing Wetlands Edge linear path to the new bike trail outside 330.
Yeah, when it's not raining and it's not wet and it's not full of potholes, etc. It's true. Right now, the road has been maintained essentially by the school district contractor because they're utilizing that to get around to their job trailer. But it hasn't always been looking great like that.
I've walked down there, I think just this past fall when it was in the rainy season. It is graveled now, so it's okay, but you're right, it does get muddy out there. Going to the linear path, is the design that it's going to be a straight bike path, or will it sort of be meandering like your current bicycle path?
We're open to anything. I mean, as I mentioned, we've had meetings with planning, public works, and parks and recreation. Part of the issue right now is that the school district is going to put a detention basin for stormwater between the new road and the new bike path. So to what extent that can affect that layout, we don't know. But we're amenable to whatever city staff wants to come up with. That's not a problem to us. I love the meandering bike path that we just constructed. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it gives it a little more interest than just a straight shot.
There's no doubt about it.
And on your diagram, you showed that there would be an entrance for Paintball Jungle. So
yes,
is that the only? So on this new road that's coming down from I guess, the wetlands edge side. So the only entrance is then off that road or to Paintball Jungle and then to the school, or is there any other exit off of that road?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Paintball Jungle has to get there from Eucalyptus Drive up Wetlands Edge Court.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Commissioner Wong, this is Brent. There's only this time only one entrance into Paintball Jungle, and that is, as Mr. Thompson mentioned, from the Wetlands Edge Court direction to the south, as it has historically been.
And so that will continue.
Yes.
Okay, and so it will be wetland. So there will be a new road sign going up calling it Wetlands Edge Court.
That's correct.
Okay, and so we really won't see it sort of like that cul-de-sac shape, that it'll just sort of dead end. Is that?
The design hasn't been decided yet, and it would be done by others, but my assumption would be as you described. But I'm not a traffic engineer, and so I don't rely on what I say, other than it's TBA.
Okay, so so it will really just be, so off of this Wetlands Edge Court, there will be an entrance to Paintball Jungle, an entrance to the school, and then those are the only two access.
Potentially, there could be a driveway into Clark Ranch Park.
Into Clark Ranch Park.
At this point, the plan that's there is conceptual, so I guess that's code for it could change.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brent. There hasn't been a lot of information about this, so it's all very new and exciting. I did want to go back to some questions about the construction phase. I know there were a lot of comments, and I think you referenced this yourself, Mr. Thompson, when the 330 warehouse was going up about the nighttime pours. And I am curious, when the school was building Napa Junction Elementary, and they had concrete poured, I don't think they had nighttime pours. So I was just wondering why the difference between when the warehouse went up, they had the nighttime pours, but the school didn't.
I don't know whether they did or they did not. The difference, to my thinking, is that the size of our facilities and the amount of concrete that we need at any one time is so large that the concrete ready mix plants can't provide that kind of quantity at that speed during the daytime, for two reasons. One, during the daytime, you know what the traffic's like on 29. That slows everything down considerably. And two, we would suck up the available capacity of the plant such that they couldn't supply anybody else with concrete for the entire day. So, not wanting to do that, they say, we will only give you that quantity at nighttime. And so we try to reduce that to the greatest extent possible, and then provide notification to anybody, well, first of all, the city, anybody that's notified us, anybody that notifies us ongoing, that we will let them know when to expect that.
How does one request notification from you if they wanted to be on this interest list?
I'm not sure how it was handled last time, Brent. Maybe you can, since I think it went through your office.
Well, I think last time it was a number of people had given us some complaints about the noise. It was, very warm. It was warm. It was summer. People had their windows open. It was a lot closer to homes, in that site than this new one. And so, we had a group of people that were very involved, and I believe that was, we used that mailing list to inform everybody on that list of when there'd be some nighttime pours. We could use that same list again.
So I guess if there was someone new and they wanted to be added, Brent, they could just email you. Is that what it sounds like?
That's right.
Okay. And so, Mr. Thompson, how are you doing the notifications? Will you just email people, or will you post a notice and say, here's the schedule? How will that work?
I would anticipate that we would let the city know, and of course we would have a list. We would maintain the same list, and it'd be either phone calls and emails, but it would be a absolute contact. In other words, we'd have a one-on-one contact to make sure that everybody understood.
Okay, great. And I did notice on the construction schedule that it does overlap with when school is in session. And presuming that the kids do go back to on-site learning this fall and the school opens, how do you monitor the air quality? Just to ensure that it's, like with the dust and everything, I mean, that it's safe for the kids, or that even if it should reach that far, I guess.
Yeah, that's almost a quarter mile away, so I don't know that would be a problem. We would certainly take a look at it.
Okay, because I know when the school was being built, the dust and the dirt, it traveled further than some of us realized that it would be for those of us that live in the area.
Yeah.
So it was just a question. And maybe because you have lots of trees and everything, maybe that will block a lot of it. And maybe that's the case with the school. It was on an open corner.
Right.
Commissioner Wong, the environmental review did evaluate air quality. I believe there are some mitigation measures that speak to that issue. I don't have the mitigations in front of me. Perhaps Mr. Grissetti might.
Excuse me, I had to unmute. Yes, Richard Grissetti. Paul Miller worked on that section, but I can also pull up those mitigation measures. There are standard requirements from the Air District regarding construction dust. And let me just pull it up right now.
Well, I was just mostly curious. Do you have a monitoring or some kind of measurement device that you just keep running that lets you know, or is it just more actively like you water down the area so the dust doesn't travel?
It's the latter. Unless you specifically want monitoring, it's typically the latter. That during the construction period, there's a series of requirements for, and well, the city has, so in this, when there's a mitigation measure, let me just check if this is a mitigation measure or whether it is just a part of the project. If it was a mitigation measure, then, no, see, these are, so there's a whole series of requirements from the Air District. So you could put them as mitigation, but they're required already by the Air District. And if you had them as mitigation, then you would put monitoring on them through the mitigation monitoring program. But they're required by they're not technically mitigation measures because they're already required to be part of every project by the Air Board. And so, and they include things about, for example, all exposed surfaces have to be watered twice a day. All trucks need to be covered. Dirt track out needs to be washed. Vehicle speeds on unpaved roads need to be limited to 15 miles an hour. And there's a whole series of these. What could be done is, I suppose you could put a condition of approval if you wanted to have it monitored, to have the implementation of these measures that are required by the Air District monitored. You could certainly put that as a condition of approval and reported to the city. You've monitored and reported to the city, or monitored for the city staff.
What are the expected operational hours of the construction? Is it 7 to 7 or 6 to 6?
Typically construction goes, 7 to 3:30. Sometimes it'll go 7 to 7. I mean, if the concrete is curing and it's taking a while to finish it. But typically, normal construction day is like 7 to 3:30. If
So
we
it
can
is-
get them to work longer, that'd be great.
So it is feasible that there may be some portion of the day where the kids are outside for recess or other activities in the area of the school that is closest to the construction site. It's possible there will be some overlap.
It's possible, yes.
The, just to comment on it, in the initial study that we quoted the city's general plan noise element, which limits construction activities unless otherwise authorized to between 6:30 a.m. and 8 p.m. It sounds like here they would stop much earlier. I think we assumed 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in our noise analysis as the latest.
Okay.
With the exception of those pores.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all the questions I have at the moment. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wong. Any other commissioners before we go to public comment or public hearing? Commissioner Altman.
Chairman Navarro, thank you. I'm going to jump in for just a second since I work with construction on a regular basis, and I'll try and clarify just from a broad sense a couple of things here.
Sure.
One, contractors' hours usually are, they're done by 3:30 most days. There are occasions when they will overtime. Some of them really enjoy the OT because they're paid handsomely for it. Two, pouring concrete, you need the right weather conditions.
Yes.
Can't be raining. You don't want it too cold. Warm is good because warm helps dry and set the concrete. So pours in summertime are great. Also, when you're doing something like a warehouse, it is a big pour. Schools are smaller. So to address that piece, you can break up the pours on a school. You can't really break up a warehouse pour because you need, with most warehouse stuff, you need real flat. And when you're doing separate pours, it's much more difficult to get them to match so that you have that really flat surface. When you're doing a large pour, you will see, and I don't know if any of you have ever been to a construction site doing a large pour, but you will see the cement mixer trucks, 20, 30, 50, and more, depending on how big the pour is, lined up, waiting to come in and pour, and they have to pour quickly because there's a time limit, and I don't know what the number is offhand, but I think it's under 30 minutes that it can sit mixing before it's wasted if it's not poured. So you've got to move quickly when doing any kind of concrete pour. So that all leads to me to understand why nighttime pours could be necessary. I mean, I think Mr. Thompson did a wonderful job in explaining the piece about messing up traffic and so on. I'm just trying to provide a little more color because I deal with contractors on a daily basis and have been witness to not too many, but to a couple of substantial concrete pours. So that's all. I just wanted to kind of jump in and hope that gives a little bit of clarification. It's also one other thing I'll touch on is it's also common contractor practice that not only do they have to cover loads of dirt coming in and out, but that they have to hose down vehicle tires or put usually it's graded barriers going in and out of the site so that when you drive over those barriers, and it's supposed to be a wide enough barrier that the whole tire is going to ride over. So it's not, you don't put a 1 foot strip, you put a big strip down so that it knocks all the dirt off of the tires, and oftentimes you've got somebody there who's just lightly hosing them down as well. So that knocks the dust and dirt off the tires. So those are just standard construction industry practices that I hope people understand. And that's all I wanted to kind of comment on at this point.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. Any other commissioners before we go to public comment or public hearing? Okay, so I did notice a hand up from Sarah before. Let me go ahead and open public comment for the SDG Commerce 217 item.
Yes, we have several people lined up to speak. I'm going to go in the order they raised their hands. So, Chris James, I have asked you to unmute yourself.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation this evening. I've actually enjoyed listening again. I also watched SDG being built. The 330 being built is really interesting. I love the landscaping. I was a little worried that PG&E, when they were laying the new pipes, was going to come in and ruin it, but I'm hoping that's going to not be the case. I do walk down that route, early in the morning and sometimes late in the afternoon. I see very little traffic coming in and out of the building. Most of the time it looks like the building is deserted. There's very few trucks there. And I don't hear any noise. So it's, and I live quite close by. So I'm not concerned about the new building and new traffic going in unless there's a different type of business going in. Interesting, I do actually see children playing down there, not only from the trail, but in an adjacent property across the way. Not that people in the jungle, but there's children that come out there and actually do loops around the little cul-de-sac there and then back into the property, into the tree area. So that's something to keep in mind with the traffic there. One of the things I was a little concerned about, I know you circled back around about some of the concerns from last time around at the SDG 330 building in 2019. There was some talk about an extra berm being built along the southern part of it to shield the building. As far as I can tell, that never really got done. It's pretty much at grade on the southern side with a looks like a water trapment area in front of between the parking lot and the trees. And then you got the eucalyptus. So if those eucalyptus trees do go away, I could see that the building will get more exposed on the southern side. So I don't know if there's any other construction that's going to go on, or re-landscaping happening on the southern side of the bigger property. But so I am interested in hearing the thoughts on that. Let me see. And I do really appreciate the new bike path. I think that would be good for completeness. I do like walking down that way just to have an alternative route, just to get somewhere to go. And I kind of agree with Commissioner Wong. She mentioned about the sidewalk paving. I know it's not part of this project, but I know it ends, I think, at around Hannah, and we walk down that way often, or not often, but we walk that way, and it kind of ends at Hannah. And I could imagine that, like, the last mile, if people do take buses to work, and then there's this last mile to work, right? So the buses are dropping off maybe on Green Island, and then people need to walk to work. It would be nice to have sidewalks for them, safe routes for people to walk to work as well. And maybe that will get redeveloped when Green Island gets done and the top portion of Commerce Boulevard. But be interested to see. But I do appreciate the effort to put in with the landscaping and the look of the buildings and the detail in the presentations there. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James. Any other next public comment?
Yes, we have Barry. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Barry Christian, American Canyon, and I really appreciate the new path that was constructed by Stravinsky Group in there. It's beautiful. It's well done, the lighting, the landscaping, the contour, and all of that. I think we had thought that the school district was going to do their part and build the southern portion that would connect out to Wetlands Edge extension there. That didn't happen. So I really applaud Stravinsky Group for wanting to complete that section. This is going to be a really important corridor, in my opinion, and it's impossible to predict how many people will use it, but the only existing way to get to Napa from American Canyon is on Highway 29, on the shoulder of the road. It's broken pavement, it's uneven, there's no protection. Paul Shapiro got killed out there by a motorist, and the cars are coming by at 70 miles an hour, and you could reach out and touch them. So there aren't people currently trying to do that. There's a few that'll ride it, but people won't do it because it's unsafe. If it's unsafe, it doesn't exist. So you could say there's no current access to get from American Canyon to City of Napa on a bicycle. This will take care of that. And the reason it is because the Devlin Road extension is going to be Vine Trail route. The Vine Trail is part of that trail from Calistoga all the way down to the ferry. What Todd's diagram didn't show is that the Green Island portion that the city is building, it does go over to Commerce, but it also goes east over to Paoli Loop. And that'll be the Vine Trail route coming down from Napa on Devlin. You'll hit Green Island Road, make a left, go over to Paoli Loop, get over to Watson Ranch, and go down that way. And one of the reasons that route was chosen for the Vine Trail is because on the western side of the city, we have Wetlands Edge Trail, which is the Bay Trail. But we can't get up north through the airport because we've been fought by either the airport or Fish and Game. So this trail will basically become Bay Trail at some point until we can get that other connection. So this is going to be Bay Trail and Vine Trail and the only connection up to City of Napa. There was in the city's parks plan, there was going to be a Bay to Ridge Trail route, which was going to go Eucalyptus Drive. Well, this will supplant that, I think, because this will make that connection possible. You come Commerce to Green Island Road, and instead of turning left on Devlin going north, you can just keep going and cross Paoli Loop, get over to Watson Ranch, and get up to Newell. And that's in the city's parks plan. The Commerce road connection is problematic. It's about a half mile between the building and Green Island Road on Commerce. Only half of it's paved. It's paved until you get across the footbridge that goes over North Slough. And I also love the things that Stravinsky Group is doing for the wetlands. That's a beautiful little corridor that you've kept the slough in a natural condition. But the city really needs, or someone really needs to make a priority of completing the section on Commerce. There's no sidewalks on either side for about 1,000 feet. This trail will allow kids from that elementary school to get out there into that area. And this isn't just a transportation trail, it's going to be a recreation trail. It's going to be Vine Trail, which is tons of people using the Vine Trail up in Napa. They're going to be using it down here too. And I can't wait till we have a connection on Napa and I can get up there on my bike without going Highway 29. And scooters, it's not just electric bikes, it's scooters, the skateboard, the electric skateboards. You can get 20 miles round trip on those. So I think there could be a lot of usage of this trail. And I think I applaud the city for extending Green Island Road to the west all the way to Commerce. I think that was a brilliant move. But the city, I don't think, considered this idea that we were going to come up from Commerce. And so I think the city needs to prioritize that in its plans for trails and put a class 1 trail in there for that 1,000 feet. Maybe even improve the sidewalk all the way down to the building at where it comes out of the eucalyptus grove. So those are my thoughts. I think it's a good. I'm really glad that this will include fixing that trail through the school, so it'll complete the route all the way through there. I think it's a really important corridor for the city in terms of bikes, pedestrians, scooters, everything. It's going to be transportation and recreation, and I think it's important. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Next, Ms. Jones?
Yes, we have Mike Lazo.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mike Lizzo for Launa 324. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
I appreciate Mr. Thompson's presentation and the responses, quite a few to our comments. First, let me just touch quickly on the recirculation question. The regulation actually, I think, does cover the situation where if the lead agency determines that a proposed mitigation measure will not reduce potential effects to less than significant and a new measure is required, then you're supposed to recirculate. We made comments on the first MND where it was only a 300-foot bike lane, And there was an assumption by the traffic engineer that bicyclists would be commuting 34 miles round trip, mind you, each day on that 300 feet and the rest of the connections. We pointed out that that didn't pass the smell test, the standard Mr. Tregenza mentioned. And now there's 800 feet. So we agree that the bike lane is important for sure. But that's a new mitigation measure, and there's a lot of other things that were thrown in there, which in our letter today we were concerned about, including trying to take credit for 1.7 miles of the Bay Trail bike pathway that's been there for years, apparently. So I do think that that is a new measure that's intended to, that realized that the previous 300-foot measure wasn't going to address the significant impacts from VMT. And now there's a new measure, a new effort to try to cover that, one, by expanding at 500 feet, which we think is a good thing. There's other sort of unsubstantiated things, we think, to justify adding other lengths that weren't part of this project. Let me start with the notion that, the bike lane obviously will improve these things, but it's not an impassable stretch through Commerce as it stands now, especially once the school finishes even the length of road that's going to be alongside it. Bikes can make it through. Obviously, it's going to be a slowdown at that point, even now, as it stands, but it's not impossible. It's not impassable as the current assessment claims. And that's the basis of trying to claim 1.7 miles of the other bikeways. That's just, that's the rationale. And expert opinions are important, but they also have to be based on facts to be substantial evidence. It can't just be based on some hunch that nobody can bike through there at this point. There's nothing in the M&D that actually explains that area, as Commissioner Wong, I think, was pointing out. You can't tell exactly what it looks like or what the connection will look like when the school's done. It's not in there. It sounds like it is certainly passable, and it isn't a rationale to add 1.7 miles of other people's pathways to the VMT analysis. You need to find other new bike lanes, perhaps, that need to be built that would allow additional VMTs to be added, which the project could then credit and definitely get down at some point, certainly, below whatever is attributable to the project itself. The concern about applying the National Cooperative Highway Research Program report guidelines, I mean, that's what's cited in the MND. That's, I may not be a traffic expert, but I looked at that and I read through it, and there's no supplemental research referenced anywhere. So I appreciate that there might be some out there in the world, but an MND is supposed to disclose to the public what the data was, what the information was that was assessed by the experts. A layperson can even read that and figure out what's going on, and or retain an expert, which we commonly do, as you're well aware, to see if they can help us understand it. Here, it says the sites of that report, and now these various analyses with numbers and things you can't find in that report, mind you. No comment period, no 30 days or 20 days or whatever, even the minimum for a mitigated negative deck on all of that new information. Just these brand new conceptual kind of ways to deal with the VMT analysis, it's just not there in that report. So I don't know what the supplemental evidence that's referred to, but in terms of your record, you would need to, be able to show that the data was disclosed and people could actually access it and see if they have comments on whether it's accurate or not, and whether the MND is accurate in describing it. So I do think that falls well short. The report you can find that's referenced does not have the same buffer zones that are applied in the analysis. And it doesn't, there's no way to tell what was used in the analysis for the likelihood multipliers. That sort of are some of the key things to figuring out how many new bike commuters will use a new stretch of bike lane, which is the key for figuring out whether how much VMTs will be lowered because of the bike lane itself. So I would just, if you were, I would ask you to honestly reflect on, can you tell from the MND what this document is, and if you can't, then I think there's a shortcoming there. It should be recirculated, as some of us certainly would welcome an opportunity to actually, have the 30 days.
Mr. Lizzo, I need you to wrap up your comments, please.
Sure. So that was the other main point I wanted to mention, and I would certainly encourage you to recirculate. And I think there is still a fair argument that the VMT that will be caused by the project has not been mitigated, and there may be a significant impact from that. So I would certainly encourage you to circulate that issue certainly one more time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jones, is there any more public comment?
Yes, we have Justin Hamilton Hall. Justin, I've asked you to unmute yourself.
Hi, do I hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And I want to talk about, I want to say this agenda. I think I see Brett Cooper on the Zoom. They update the hill over by Karen Dunmore, the Ford house built, that new house, that is sell.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hall, you were breaking up. We weren't, it sounds like you had a question of.
I think the question might have been the subdivision at Rio Del Mar in Carolyn.
Yes, that's correct.
That property, it's not part of the agenda, but I can tell you that the property has been put up for sale by the property owner.
Okay, I did not hear, I did not see that happening. It's hit there a long time, and there's no solid.
Ms. Hall, do you have a question regarding the current item on the agenda?
No, not this moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Jones, any
Yes, we have Patrick Band. Mr. Band?
Thank you very much. Patrick Band, Executive Director, Napa County Bicycle Coalition.
Did he?
Hold on.
Just drop off?
I'm sorry, Mr. Band, we lost your audio. You're back on, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Technical difficulties.
I want to thank Mr. Thompson for notifying the Napa County Bicycle Coalition of this project, and Mr. Cooper for sharing some of the background documents earlier today. The Napa County Bicycle Coalition did support the project at 330 Commerce 2 years ago, prior to the implementation of SB 743, which is the key topic that we're discussing tonight. We at the Bicycle Coalition certainly strongly support the goals of SB 743, but we're not in a position to comment on the merits of the letters and communications that have been submitted, and whether or not this particular project is consistent with that bill. What we are able to comment on is the current state and hopefully the future state of active transportation, walking and bicycling in the city of American Canyon. We know right now that countywide we have a goal of reaching 10% of just over 1% or 2% that are taken on foot. In addition to providing safe, accessible facilities, we also understand that there are programs and encouragement that need to occur to hit those goals and to be able to achieve the GHG and vehicle miles traveled reductions, both that are established under state law and also adopted into the city and the countywide bicycle plans. As I've shared a couple times with the Planning Commission and City Council in the past, we know that somewhere between 50 and 60% of residents in any given city are interested in riding a bike, but they're concerned primarily about safety. And so providing safe, accessible facilities is real key to improving walking and biking in our community. With that in mind, We certainly support the construction of this missing gap in the proposed Class 1 network, but also recognize that there are immediately adjacent and potentially more significant gaps that also need to be addressed. Particularly, the city has planned for Class 2 bike lanes on Commerce Boulevard, effectively from the project site to the north at Green Island Road, which would provide that connection that Barry was referring to in his public comments a few minutes ago to the Napa Valley Vine Trail alignment. Providing those kinds of facilities is an equal or potentially even greater priority for the Bicycle Coalition for meeting our active transportation goals for the city. So what we'd like to recommend this evening is that the Planning Commission take every possible opportunity that you have to ensure that both this project and future projects are meeting their obligations under the city and under state law, and to the best of your ability, leveraging those opportunities to implement the city's bicycle plan. So we would be strongly supportive of looking at additional improvements along Commerce Boulevard to the north at Green Island Road. There's about 2,800 square feet, 2,800 linear feet of proposed Class 2. And as you know from our comments on previous bike and pedestrian plans, Class 2 bike lanes are effectively paint. It's very easy to put in. Commerce is 40 feet wide with no on-street parking along significant segments, so there's plenty of right-of-way within the existing roadway to accomplish those goals.
Mr. Van, please wrap up.
I will wrap up in just one moment. The last thing I wanted to mention is with regard to the bicycle parking. We certainly appreciate the developer going above and beyond the city's obligations, and would like to explore the opportunity to move that parking indoor to a more secure location to further support bicyclist riding during winter weather, where leaving a bicycle outside during the rain might not be advisable, and keep those bicycles secure throughout employees' workdays. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Ban. Any further public comment, Mr. Jones?
We have nobody else who has raised their hand. There are several people in the room. If you would like to comment, please raise your hand at this time. Nobody, nobody is raising their hand. We do have Mr. Neil Thompson, the applicant, who's one of our panelists.
Okay.
Raising his hand, so.
Mr. Thompson, you're muted.
Quickly respond to something that Mr. Ban just said, something about 2,800 linear feet of bike lane on Commerce. Right now we have Class 2 bike lane striping that commences at the southern cul-de-sac on Commerce Court and extends on both sides of the road north all the way to North Slough. The only place that it doesn't occur is north between North Slough and Green Island Road. So, and I would agree with both Patrick and with Barry that it needs to be extended to Green Island Road in some form or fashion. But that's the extent of my comment.
Okay. All right. Is there any further public comment?
Mr. Band has raised his hand again. Protocol states that members of the community are allowed to comment one time per item. So.
I mean.
It's your discretion, Chairman.
Okay, let him go forth with it. Okay. I'm sure it's related. And
I apologize, and thank you very much for providing the opportunity. I just wanted to clarify that there are fog line stripes on Commerce, but they are not Class 2 bicycle facilities. They're both substandard width, and they're not signed as bicycle facilities. So certainly those are improvements that need to be made in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that is all with public comment?
Yes, that is all.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing for the SDG Commerce 217 project. So again, now open to any questions or comments from the commissioners. Any further questions, Commissioner Wong?
I have a question, yes. Mr. Thompson, to Mr. Band's comment, which I think is a very relevant comment, if we want to utilize the aspect of encouraging employees to commute via bicycle, providing a spot to park your bicycle in inclement weather would be viable, such as a covered parking outside or storage lockers or parking inside. Is there any possibility that you could accommodate that in your plans?
I don't see any reason why not.
Okay, thank you. That's very reasonable of you.
Okay. Any other comment? Is that it, Commissioner Wong?
Yes, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Just a quick couple of comments here.
Yes.
So I noticed that the construction date or the pouring when it would start on March 1st, and I'm assuming that would be pushed out of your commencement date to start on the project.
Mr. Thompson, you're muted.
We still have to go through the permit process, so yes, absolutely it's going to be out.
Okay, and are you looking to accelerate the project or keep that 9.5 month 10 project phase?
The basic issue is we want to be able to be done before the weather hits in the fall. So.
Okay. And then also, just during with construction, do you guys have the COVID-19 protocol in place? And if so, what would that?
Oh, absolutely. We lived through COVID on the 330. So yes, absolutely. We got protocols all over the place. Yes.
Okay, and is that something where the city gets notified of any instances of that, and do you shut down for the day, or can you just elaborate more on that?
There are arm's length worth of protocols. I don't know exactly all of the conditions, and admittedly they changed over time. So beginning
I'm sure.
last March for the last year, it's just an ongoing process.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, just the reason I'm asking is that, we do have workers that are potentially, may visit other areas of the city, on their breaks or lunch or whatnot.
Totally understand.
Definitely just wanted to do that. And then my last question is just, I'm excited. I'm really interested in just knowing kind of just how the employment of the filling of the positions will be. You said there's 32 full-time employees and 18 part-time. How do you have people already in place, or are you going to do like a job fair, or how is that model implemented?
Well, the employees basically are hired by the tenants, and right now, we don't exactly have the tenants signed up, so we think we know who they're going to be, but how they're going to obtain their employees, I'm not sure. So I couldn't speak to that at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all I got. I think my other questions were asked by.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Malari. Any other questions? Okay. I guess, City Attorney, is there any further responses or thoughts from any of the public comment? Okay. So then, is there any motion for this particular item? There, right? Is there something I'm missing? Have I done this correctly? Are we at the point to make a motion for? I know there are two resolutions before us that is being recommended by staff.
You're at that point, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, you are. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion for that the commission adopt the resolution for the approval of the initial study or mitigated negative declaration for the SDG Commerce 217 project.
Okay.
We'll second that motion.
Okay. Can we get a roll call, Ms. Jones?
Okay, hold on. Can I, in making that motion, is it a motion to adopt the resolution that's in the package, resolution number 2021 next in order, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, one, adopting the initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the SDG Commerce 217 project, consisting of a conditional use permit for 217,294 square feet, single story, 35-foot tall wine warehouse on a 10.39 acre site at 1075 Commerce Court. Also adopting the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And finally, directing staff to file a notice of determination with the APN for the project, which is project number PL 200008.
Thank you.
That's
Mr.
exactly what I meant to say.
And what I meant to second.
Okay, can we now have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mallory,
Aye.
Chair Navarro.
Aye.
So is the conditional use permit included within that movement, right? There's not a,
No, there's now another item.
Yes, and I will then make a motion to adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, approving a conditional use permit for a new 217,294 square foot, single story, 35-foot tall wine warehouse on a 10.39 acre site at 1075 Commerce Court, APN 058-030-065, file number PL 20-0008, with a recommendation, because it doesn't apply presently, that once tenants are known, the city work with the tenants on a local hiring requirement, best effort requirement.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Jones, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mallory,
Aye.
Chair Navarro.
Aye. Okay, so motion carries. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. He and Mr. Thompson and all who gave input, and the public for your interest and your participation in this hearing today. So I guess we can go ahead and move on to next item. There is no business. So staff items are the current active planning projects for February 2021.
Thank you, Chair Navarro. I'm Brent Cooper, Community Development Director, and I'll just give you the highlights. Of course, you have your list in the packet. We have several things going on at the Napa Valley Casino. They have an application to increase the number of tables. City Attorney is working with that project. It's an ordinance amendment that will go to the council. Apart from that, they are adapting to the COVID conditions, and they have a temporary tent application with us. We got some comments. It's pretty simple. Expect that should be resolved pretty soon, and they'll be able to resume their business outside. And meanwhile, they have also have plans for more of a permanent structure outside. So I think they're looking more long term. And then including in that would be a food trailer. So it's also part of their ability to sort of pivot and be able to provide food service outdoors. So they're really working hard to be able to adapt to the current conditions. The Giovanoni Logistics Park, that's a large 2.4 million square foot park. They're working on preparing the environmental impact report, and staff is reviewing the project. And we've had comments to them, and so that's moving along. We got several comments from the notice of preparation. Different agencies had suggestions on various issues to make sure that we analyze in the EIR, which is the whole purpose of having that type of outreach, and it's yielded some results, so that's good. We did have, unfortunately, a withdrawal of an application, the first ever bed and breakfast conditional use permit that got put on hold because of COVID. The applicant just contacted Mr. He and requested to withdraw the application. So I don't know, maybe it'll come back again when things are closer to normal as we understand it. But for now, it's on. Looks like it's being withdrawn. The other big issue that William is working very hard on, that he mentioned in his update for you with the housing element, is the Oat Hill. It's the by my description grab bag of entitlements, general plan, zone change, design permit, subdivision map, lot line adjustment. You name it, it's in there. So big project, working very hard to get that ready for your planning commission at your next meeting. So hopefully that will work out. Our two service station applications, we have provided the applicant comments. We're waiting back to hear from them. We're all looking forward to next Tuesday's discussion of the City Council on the urgency ordinance discussion. Apart from the urgency ordinance, as we talked about with the Circle K application, the commission has discretion with the use permit to really examine each application on its own merits and make decisions going forward. And so that's another option that exists today. But we'll talk about those and other issues related to a potential moratorium next Tuesday. I have been talking to the city manager about a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the City Council. If we move forward with the moratorium, that could potentially be an issue to have both of the Commission and the Council talk about. We also have upcoming general plan issues too that we could combine the two bodies together for a nice, interesting, and robust discussion. On the
Cooper, can I jump in on that for a second? I have to say, as a longstanding member of the Planning Commission, to see the gyrations going on regarding fueling stations, it's why I have argued for years that City Council and Planning Commission should be speaking with some regularity, because we as the commission are an advisory body appointed and selected by the city council. And yet there's no communication between the two bodies. So it's doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, while I'm not opposed to this urgency ordinance and so on, I think it's completely unnecessary. And if the city council and the planning commission were to meet annually kind of at the beginning of the year and do our own planning, and it can be done within Brown Act guidelines, open meeting and so on, but to discuss issues and how we all view things so we can align our perspectives, it would likely save everybody a whole lot of time. Because I think there'd be greater alignment between the two bodies in terms of where our heads are. So I just want to put that out there. I mean, and again, I will strongly encourage that the city manager and the city council look to schedule at least one and ideally more than one joint meeting of some fashion in terms of a planning concept so that we can be better aligned. So that's all I got for now. But
well, if I may add to Commissioner Altman's comment, I think also it would be more productive for the Planning Commission to meet in a more strategic way with the City Council to better understand their perspectives of in general. So I think as it relates to the overall plan, where then gas stations or other things that may cause community concerns, the use of cannabis or growing of cannabis or the other things. So we have a good understanding of their perspective of all the different stuff, all the different issues that they care about, and that because that represents what the community cares about. So it just seemed, I also think that it's kind of unproductive to put a moratorium on, especially a 45-day moratorium on accepting applications, because we can, if we understand what the community needs and wants are, and it's all zoned appropriately through the master plan, then there's no need for a moratorium for some, for that. So that's the end of my comments about it.
All right. Well, we'll get our meetings teed up and be able to air these issues, and
yeah,
I think things will go a little. I think we'll feel things are a little smoother. But moving on, as William had mentioned earlier in his presentation, we did receive an application for the affordable housing project in Watson Ranch. So, like I mentioned, we get these projects that come every so often. What's going to be really interesting about the project in Watson Ranch, it's the first of its kind, I believe, that will be constructed from pre-manufactured units. So that should really speed the construction. I've been hearing about it, in different places in the Bay Area, but
like
the first of its kind.
Module housing?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Looking at the architecture just before this meeting, it's very attractive. It's a modern, but it has all those multicolors and stone, and it's very attractive.
Yeah, they have models down in Mare Island of that kind of,
Yeah, so anyway, that one, staff has worked with the applicant quite extensively in advance of their application submittal. So I have pretty high expectations that it should be pretty good.
Great.
The other exciting part is Canyon Estates. They do have their, as Edison Bisnar mentioned at your last meeting, they have their improvement plans, and they have some documents with real estate, California Department of Real Estate. I talked to Dick Lokey, the applicant, just a couple of days ago. He's very excited. and expects to be breaking loose with that in about a month. He says that, I predicted this, that a lot of the pre-sales are from people who live in American Canyon already. So it's we have a lot of people that are successful and they want to stay here. And having a housing product that enables people to be able to move up and stay in the community is a really good thing. So it's nice to see, you think these things are the truth and it's going to work out that way, and it's pretty exciting for me to see it actually work out that way.
Yeah.
So that's nice to see coming along. And I think that's about it. Apart from, I'm going to be probably tomorrow, maybe Monday. I'll be scheduling scheduling meetings with our circulation and lifelong learning general plan committees. I'm getting those started up again, so I expect that should be pretty exciting. To get that back on track, back in the saddle with our committees. We have been working with our consultants and making some progress sort of on the boring stuff, but getting the committees back again is it'll be really nice to make some progress. So, and that's my update for you.
Okay. Well, thanks. A lot of good stuff still happening during these challenging crisis time. Still moving forward. Thank you. Okay. So I guess the next, any commissioner items? Anybody have anything? Commissioner Goff?
Yeah, I've got one. And this just came out of tonight's meeting. During public comment tonight, just general public comment, both are people who spoke. One talked about, mentioned coercion in relation to our jobs and our responsibilities. And the other one mentioned, actually they both mentioned the sense that our hands were tied by city staff. I just thought both of those needed to be addressed. I don't feel that I have witnessed anything in our conversations or anything like that on either one of those matters. So I just wanted to make sure that during public comment at this point in time, that I don't believe, from my active participation on Planning Commission, I've ever witnessed coercion by anybody amongst the commission or amongst city staff itself, or I've never witnessed or been part of a process in which I felt that I couldn't act on my own behalf because of restraints or anything put in place by the city. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Altman?
I'll follow up Commissioner Goff's comments and just second basically what he's said. In all my time on the commission, I have not seen any evidence of collusion, persuasion. Persuasion, yes, we are supposed to present our case as we view it, either in support or in opposition on an issue, but there's been nothing from city staff, from city council, from fellow commissioners, most importantly, that have ever made me feel like I was compelled to do something any one way or another, and I too was troubled by those comments, because I think they are not representative of how this body has behaved or acted presently or in the past. So I do want to I thank Commissioner Goff for bringing that up, and I clearly support that, and all. So, and then I will, on a completely unrelated note, given that tomorrow is a notable Jewish holiday, I will wish to all the Jewish members of the City of American Canyon who may be tuning in at this point, a Chag Purim Sameach. Happy Purim.
Okay. Thank you.
That's on the diversity and inclusion front.
Good. Thank you. Any other commissioner items?
I just want to echo the commissioners here on, I definitely agree with you on what you have mentioned as far as what is open to public comment. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and, their free speech. But the thought that we were, that there's coercion or just being influenced by one another or whatnot, it feels blasphemy. It doesn't bring in our character of who we are. We are all diversified here. I mean, this is my second term here, and it's all a learning curve. We cannot please everybody. We cannot please everybody in the community. But what I do encourage is that anybody that's listening, anybody that would want to get involved and wants to be part of the solution, is to participate in next Tuesday's workshop, and also just continue to use positive platforms and reach out to those that you would like to voice your opinions to, as opposed to using social media platforms and anything of that to degrade the community that we are here all trying to build and we live in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Malloy.
I just wanted to offer that we had two very robust discussions about Circle K at our Planning Commission meeting. So I think that it was pretty clear that we're all individuals and we all made up our own minds, and it was a pretty robust discussion. And in the end, I think City Council was disappointed by our decision. But I think that goes back to points that Eric made, that, or maybe it was you, Chair Goff, that if we don't want more gas stations, it should be in the zoning. We should have a clear business developed economic plan. Don't rely that we're mind readers, that we know how that we can read minds. I think having clear guidance is the best. And I do agree that more open communication between the two bodies, I think that will be very helpful, because otherwise it's just churn. It's hard on the applicants, it's hard on the staff, so I think having more transparency between the two parties would be great. And I think I would appreciate it for one as well. And for my part in the matter as well, I think a lot of times our residents, maybe they are interested in some of the issues we're discussing, but for some reason they don't see the notification in the city manager's Friday newsletter, or maybe they're not on the mailing list for Brent's about town developments. So I have been posting the Planning Commission agendas as well as the City Council agendas on Facebook and Nextdoor when I can, to try and encourage more public comment. And one of my recent suggestions that I gave to council and our city manager was that when they offer these meetings via Zoom, and maybe, Brent, this is something that we can do as well, with Zoom, you have the ability to turn on captions. And having captions may be a benefit to people who are hard of hearing, and maybe the audio online is difficult for them. But if you have the additional captions, that may, increase the accessibility of this information to some of our participants. So I hope we can consider captions for our meetings. I've asked them to consider that for City Council. And I would encourage my fellow commissioners to also encourage our neighbors and others to attend our meetings, because, like Brent said one time when I applied for Planning Commission, everything happens here. And so it's a great way to get, our community engaged in a more timely manner, right? When decisions are, being made earlier. And just on a side note, one of the ADUs that was on the report that, William, that you presented, the one on Bedford, it's opposite the tennis courts, and I walk that path pretty regularly, and it went up really quickly. I was kind of surprised to see that little ADU. I couldn't see very much of it over the fence line, but it looked nice from what I could tell. And I hope there will be more ADUs forthcoming. I think they're a great addition to the city.
Yeah.
that was a nice one. That it went through plan check pretty quickly for that one. But
Yeah.
I'd love to see more of them in the future, as it's one of our quickest way to get low and very low income.
As well as reach our goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will echo everyone's comments, and I'm not going to belabor it because it's getting late. But the other thing is that, you know, there's nothing preventing City Council to do what Planning Commission does, and they can observe and comment as well in our meeting. So it's interesting that they were surprised if they were that concerned and you know, of the issue. We had 2 meetings regarding it. So that might be a note to convey. I did even, you know, it was a little sad to me that and so we just rubber stamped it. Like somehow, you know, we gave it a pretty good churn on that decision, and it didn't seem reflected in any of their comments. So, you know, it made me think of you know, maybe sending some sort of communique, but we'll leave it alone. I'm sure they'll have a good, robust conversation on Tuesday. I'll be observing, and I encourage all of us to attend. So, with that, any other comments? Otherwise, I will ask to adjourn. I have a second. Or a
Congratulations on your first meeting, Chair Navarro.
Oh, thank you.
An adjournment is always in order.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. We don't need a roll call.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Your first meeting. Good job.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all your support and encouragement.
Nicely done.
Okay.
Take care.
Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.